All right, so your retail book has been substantially increased in a steady manner over 6,000 crore rupees. But if I really look at the overall scenario, Mr. Piramal, and I've spoken to many investors in the company and in the sector and the analyst community as well, what the market is a little apprehensive about is the GNPA number that you have given, 0.9%, very stable, good set of numbers. But given the nature of the market and the sentiment in the market, this looks very difficult to digest. If you can give more color on your risk assessment process and also on the asset quality on the books.
So again, if I look at the overall risk assessment process, I think first of all we should understand how we are doing the underwriting.
Yes.
And this we have been saying this from the last 3 years, including on your program, that we believe that the consolidation in the real estate sector is taking place, and that the top 10% of the developers will do well and not the 90%. And these are by and large the people whom we have been funding, is the top developers. And these are the ones where you find that their sales and their construction is much faster than the balance. So that's one understanding. Second thing we do is that we have what we call, because of the understanding that we have in the real estate space and also because of the close relationships that we have with developers, we do have what are early warning signals, where we go and inspect each loan that we've done into detail. What is the progress of the projects and all. And before even there could be a crisis, we start taking corrective action. If we feel that there's going to be an imminent stress in 6, 12 months or maybe 18 months later, we start talking to the developers to see how we can correct the situation. The correction of the situation would be that either the developer sells, brings down some rates, sells more, or sometimes it could happen that we move some assets from one developer to another stronger one.
Right.
So these are the several measures that we've taken.
Also taking over the projects as well?
So we have not taken over any project yet, but that, as I said, is a nuclear option. People know that we understand this business and we could take it over.
All right. So one more aspect which has been talked about a lot is the moratorium period. And you have extensively said in the call with the investors that it is about 5,000 odd crore rupees. If you can give a little more color on the fact that you gave about 40% of your total book is either just commissioned or about to commission. If you can give more color about the moratorium period bit.
So as far as moratorium is concerned, first of all, let me say that when you are funding in a real estate project, we do not fund for land purchase.
Right.
So the moratorium is given either when the project has got all the approvals and is in construction, or so therefore the security is projects under construction or projects where there are receivables. But I have found that in real estate, you cannot always predict the cash flows. That's because sometimes it depends on approval, sometimes it depends on, every stage you need approvals. And so very often the best way to do it is to give some flexibility to the developer. That's why we give the moratorium. But it doesn't mean that you don't get cash. The fact is, the important thing is that you should escrow any receivable that is coming from a developer.
Uncertainty was only about moratorium with regards to the ability of the project to pay, because you don't know because they haven't started paying. That's why that question appeared in the minds of several investors.
It does take time in real estate. Sometimes there is. So rather than putting pressure and that every quarter you start paying, give a moratorium of 18 months or something, and then actually we've seen it. They by and large pay earlier than that.
All right. And what part of your total book would have been restructured?
We don't restructure, no.
All right. And as you look at it today, while we are in this particular quarter, your results for the last quarter have already been announced. How are you seeing the business environment, Mr. Piramal, in the real estate sector? And when it comes to your books, the 30 to 60-day period of overdue and 60 to 90-day period, these are the two critical areas. Are you seeing SMA1, SMA2 kind of situation?
So we have actually reported it, and that's when you talked about the gross NPA of 0.9%.
Yes.
It includes SMA 1 and 2.
Right.
I mean, yes, to some extent the sales are lower in the real estate space. But if you look at our developers, they are definitely doing much better than that of the others. Actually, if you see the results of some of the companies that are also in the space and which are public listed, you find that they are doing better than what the average is. So we are definitely, our customers are doing better.
At a time when liquidity is constrained, does that change your strategy with regards to the overall company and especially pharma? Because a year back, when NBFC situation was far better, Mr. Piramal, you were talking about an acquisition of a domestic focused pharma company. Does that still stand, or you would rather divest any asset so that you're cash rich?
So actually we are pretty decent on cash, as I said, and when I add the sort of receipts that will come from Shriram, I think we'll have enough of firepower with us. As far as pharma is concerned, yes, I think there are many growth opportunities for us. We would look at it. As I said, that in the midterm we will look at actually separating the pharma and the financial services.
Yes.
And pharma, I see that there's a lot of interest as far as many global players are concerned. So if necessary, we can look at them as a partner, but there's not going to be divestment of assets.
And by midterm, you're going to separate the two businesses. How long is the midterm?
So let's see, let's look at the environment.
Is there any timeline in place?
There's no specific timeline.
All right. But is this 5,400 crores enough at this point, or are you taking more steps for more liquidity? Any other equity transaction, structured transaction, or any divestment?
So as I said, if I look at the debt equity ratio, this is more than adequate. It is 1 point. With this coming in, our equity will be, debt to equity will be about 1.6 times, which is very conservative. And if I add the inflow that will come from Shriram, that will only add further to the equity. It will be more than enough, I think, for the moment.
Right. A larger, picture that is required now, Mr. Piramal, and I was speaking to some of your colleagues in the sector as well. And the sense that I got is that now the problem has shifted from liability to asset. Now, in the con call, you did make a point that we have been cautious on disbursements in the last quarter, and that therefore your loan book has also behaved in a certain fashion because of this. Now, when you, being such a big player in this space, you understand real estate, if you are constrained on disbursement, the last mile funding for real estate companies is so limited, do you think that the assets would start depleting, and the assets which you think would really come to a conversion and start repaying may not actually fructify?
Very good question, and that's the reason why we've also raised these funds. And the first priority for us would be to see that how we do this last mile funding.
Right.
To ensure that the assets that we have lent to don't deteriorate over time, but actually continue, they finish, and then you can sell. So the first priority as far as our funds will be concerned is to ensure that the projects that we have funded so far go to completion.
Right.
I think that is the priority, and we will do that, and you will see that.
All right, Mr. Piramal, as I sense it, there's lots more to track in your company going forward as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.